Hey, it's time for a new league. This is going to be a quick rundown of the build that I'm using to league start 3.18 with a little showcase of what I've been able to achieve within about 5 days. So I am playing Bane Occultist. Bane is a skill that applies curses to enemies at an AoE and also does chaos damage over time to whatever enemies it hits. The DPS of Bane itself isn't really that great, which is why we paired this with a few other chaos skills for boss fights. However, when you combine this with the Profane Bloom Occultist Ascendancy node, it actually becomes really good at clearing. Also, applying curses to enemies with Bane is a huge amount of quality of life that makes up for it not being the best DPS skill on its own. Once you start getting better gear, the DPS of Bane by itself does actually reach a point where it becomes completely fine for high tier map clearing, even including Giga Chad rare monsters. During boss fights, we actually make use of Essence Drain as well, which is a single target projectile which will apply a separate damage over time debuff on whatever target it hits. And we also have Blight and Vol Blight, which is just more damage over time DPS. These skills are only used when the Vol Blight version is available or when we are in a safe position to stand still and channel Blight. And if that wasn't enough, we have one more skill for boss DPS, and that is Withering Step. Wither is something that we apply, it's like a stacking debuff that we apply just by being near enemies. However, if we activate Withering Step, we actually gain an AoE around us that any enemies inside the AoE gains an immediate 7 stacks of Wither. And that increases our DPS tremendously. So basically, Bane, Essence Drain, Vol Blight, combined with the Withering Step, that is our perfect scenario boss DPS, where when all those things align, it actually becomes decently good at bossing. Not to mention, Bane has, the added quality of life of being able to move around and avoid boss mechanics while the damage is being done over time, because it does last for quite a while on the monster itself, so that's also nice. In terms of the progression from Axe into red maps, it's actually very comfortable. This build utilizes several early uniques that are very affordable, such as Cane of Unraveling and Cherubim's Maleficent's Triumphant Lamellar. Try saying that 3 times fast. Both of these items provide incredibly good DPS and defenses while being very easy to obtain with 5-link, which is more than sufficient for early mapping. Also, Crown of the Inward Eye wasn't affordable at the very start, but it's now sitting at only about 15 or 20 C, which isn't all too bad. The other gear is pretty flexible, just a bunch of rares that you can get whatever you need to fix your build, such as resistances or stats. And if you really want to, you can get Apothecary Gloves for a little bit more DOT, you can get Iolite Ring for more chaos damage, you can get Stygian Vice for the added benefit of having an Abyss slot, and you can also get the Aziri Step for just a very nice placeholder boot item until you get really good rare boots later. The only other important thing on the gear is a +1 Chaos Skill Gems Amulet, and honestly, these are quite affordable. If you get a +1 to all Chaos Skill Gems along with 2 or 3 other mods that you actually like, it's really not going to cost you all that much, only about 20 or 30 C. This build does not rely on any sort of expensive gems or jewels such as a Natural Instinct or some 30x cluster jewel or something. You can be more than effective with just your standard skill gems leveled from Lily, as well as run-of-the-mill Cobalt jewels. Even the 8 passive large cluster that I'm using is only about 1 exalt, which is definitely a fair price once you get to the point of wanting to use one. The most expensive piece of gear in the video you are currently watching is actually a level 3 Enlightened support, and all this is doing for me is allowing me to use both Determination and Grace, along with Malevolence and Vitality. This enables me to get a healthy amount of armor and evasion, combined with other parts of our gear and passive tree. This is however not necessary, and you can easily farm maps without these auras while saving up to be able to afford them. Pretty soon I'll actually be slotting in level 4 Enlighten, which will allow me to turn on Defiance Banner as well. That'll be nice. That's what I'm saving up for at the moment. And speaking of tankiness, like I just mentioned, we have a very respectable amount of armor and evasion, while also having a few extra defensive layers. The first and most obvious defensive layer is the Molten Shell that we have linked to cast when damage taken. This is great because it scales off of our armor, and we do have a pretty good amount of armor. The next defensive layer is having a large amount of chaos resistance, which is awesome because what you might notice is that my life pool isn't very large, but my energy shield is pretty decent. All combined together, I have about like 5.6k, and typically this is ill-advised because chaos damage goes straight through energy shield, so any sort of large chaos damage I take is going to kill me if it's greater than 3900 life. But with a lot of chaos resistance, we actually can survive those large chaos damage one-shots that would kill most people. And that basically just gives us more value out of having both high energy shield and high life. Well, I shouldn't say high, but you know, whatever. This is actually a two birds with one stone situation, because having a lot of chaos resistance also gives us more DPS. With this specific node on the tree, we actually get, I think it's like a total of 15, I have a total of 15 chaos damage multiplier added to my build because of the chaos resistance that I have as well. And that's a lot. The greatest way to scale DPS with this build is +1 to gems on your gear to level up your Bane and level up everything else, as well as damage over time multiplier on jewels, on amulets, on I think rings can technically get it as well somewhere. So with that being said, the chaos resistance giving us 15% chaos damage over time multiplier is really good for our build. At the moment of me recording these fights, it was the first time I did it to unlock my void stones, and my build was not really ready for that. I don't have enough DPS to comfortably do these bosses. With that being said, I didn't die on either Exarch or Eater of the Worlds, and I'm not very well familiar with these bosses. So basically, all I'm trying to say is, with the amount I have invested in the build right now, it's not going to look very impressive. The DPS is not great against bosses at the moment, but this is going to be easily fixed down the road with a little bit of min-maxing. And in the future, it's going to be actually really good when we get our hands on a super nice staff, as well as some really good body armors. But as of right now, what you're seeing is basically me struggling to kill Cirrus. Eater of the Worlds was easy, Searing Exarch was easy, it just took a little bit of time. Cirrus was tough. It took me about 6 minutes in total, and I went through several different phases, and I actually died to a dive beam because I dodged. I got hit by it once, I dodged into a different damaging beam, and then I got hit by it a second time and it just killed me. But I did actually tank a few other hits from the dive beams, so with all the chaos resistance we have, with our decently sized life and ES pool, I'm not going to say this build right now is good at bossing, but it can kill them, you know, it can definitely kill them, no problem. Like in terms of, you know, you're not going to lose all your portals, it's just going to take you a while, and you might die to Cirrus. That's basically the overall, that's the review of the bossing capabilities. So basically that's all I wanted to cover. Just wanted to give you a quick rundown of why I think this is a fantastic League starter. And once again, as a quick synopsis, the early game process into farming maps and farming whatever League content you got your eye on is very smooth and effective, while also being incredibly affordable. And with a bit of investment, the build can transition into being very survivable as well, while also taking down some endgame bosses and unlocking your void stones. If you're coming into this League a few days late and are looking for a good League starter, I would highly suggest Bane Occultist. Also, I would suggest that you go check out Subtractem. He's a great content creator who has covered this build in detail several times in the past and is also League starting this same exact build. Let me know if you would like to see any sort of updates to this build as I continue to improve my gear and push harder and harder content, and if you happen to have any questions, feel free to post them in the comments. I may be able to answer them. You can find my POB by searching me up on PoE Ninja. I'll link that in the description, and if I ever am no longer on the ladder for PoE Ninja, I will link my POB at whatever state it's currently in. As of right now on PoE Ninja, I'm actually number 13, top 13 for Bane DPS across all players who are being picked up by the PoE Ninja. You know, there's probably some out there who aren't, who knows. But I'm pretty happy with that. Being top 13 is actually, I'm actually surprised by that. You might notice my Essence Drain DPS is actually really bad, and that's because I've been neglecting it. I haven't really upgraded my gems at all in that link setup. And that could be improved tremendously, and I'm going to go do that as soon as I get done making the video. And on that note, I'll leave you there. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope this perhaps encouraged you to try this build. It's a lot of fun. It's a great build. And don't forget to check out Subtractem if you want some more detailed info on it.